like to call this meeting to order. Can I ask for, okay, thank you. I'd like to call the Sherburne County Board of Commissioners, July 12th, 2022 County Board Meeting to order. We'll start with a moment of silence and a pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Freedom. Okay, now we'll look at our agenda, proposed agenda. Would anyone move to approve it?
Are there any changes?
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the Commissioner. Commissioner Schmee saying just a note that we did have a corrected resolution for item, I believe it's 26, and it's in your, it was handed out and also posted online. It's a corrected resolution. And also on
Is
consent.
that part of the consent?
It is. And then when you get to consent, item 10 is a proclamation, and if the board wishes, we could pull it at that time and read the proclamation.
Okay, I'll move the agenda as amended.
Excuse me?
I'll move the amended agenda.
Okay, the motion's been made to approve the amended agenda. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second has made and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Passed. Okay. Now we will go to the consent agenda. And we have a couple.
I'll move the consent agenda with the updated resolution with number 26 and pulling number 10 to read aloud the proclamation.
Okay, is there a second for that?
I'll second.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve the consent agenda with those two changes. All those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed, nay. Motion's passed. So let's go ahead with the item number 10.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the Commission. Recommended is approval of a proclamation designating July 17th through July 23rd, 2022 as Sherburne County Pretrial Probation and Parole Supervision Week. The proclamation reads as follows. Whereas Sherburne County Community Corrections is an essential part of the justice system, and whereas Sherburne County Community Corrections professionals uphold the law with dignity while recognizing the rights of the public to be safeguarded from criminal activity, and whereas Sherburne County Community Corrections professionals are responsible for supervising adult and juvenile offenders residing in the county, and whereas Sherburne County Community Corrections professionals are trained and provide evidence-based services and referrals for offenders, and whereas Sherburne County Community Corrections professionals work in partnership with local law enforcement, community agencies and groups, and whereas Sherburne County Community Corrections professionals promote prevention, intervention, and advocacy, and whereas Sherburne County Community Corrections professionals provide services, support, and protection for victims, and whereas Sherburne County Community Correction professionals advocate community and restorative justice, and whereas Sherburne County Community Corrections professionals are a true force of positive change, now therefore be it resolved that July 17th through 23rd, 2022 is recognized as Sherburne County Community Corrections Pretrial, Probation, and Parole Supervision Week.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, I'll move that proclamation.
I'll second.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve the proclamation. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Motion's passed. Okay. Now we can move on to announcements.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the Commission. Just 5 quick announcements. First of all, just to note that the County Fair will be running this Thursday through Sunday. We encourage everyone to attend here in Elk River at the fairgrounds. Also note that there is an invitation to commissioners to attend an ambassador's tour at 5 p.m. on Wednesday. If any commissioner is interested in attending, please let me know, and we will get you the specific places and where to meet the 4-H and Extension folks for that tour. Second, just a note that we received a grant during the interim here between meetings, a Connecting Outdoor Partnership Grant. This is kind of a fun one. The county, in partnership with Stearns and Isanti County, received a $38,500 grant with no match that will allow us to purchase cross-country skis and ski boots, snowshoes, and a trailer. And during the winter, we will share this equipment in the 3 county park systems to allow people to get out and experience the outdoors. So congratulations to Gina for another successful grant application. Third is a note, also AMC is forming a cybersecurity task force. It's going to be periodic meetings throughout the next year, both in person and remote, and they are seeking interest from commissioners, administrators, and IT professionals to participate on that cybersecurity task force. With the board's permission, I would recommend Brian, our IT director, be recommended to serve on that task force, but I wanted to also see if there was commissioner interest. And if there is, if you'd let me know, I will forward your name to AMC. Fourth, another great award for Sherburne County. We have been named a top 10 digital county in the United States. This is an award given by the Center for Digital Government. There'll be a press release tomorrow, and the award will be presented at NACO next week. We're excited because the other counties, the only county from Minnesota, the other counties come from Arizona, California, Virginia, and Wisconsin. So congratulations to the county for being a digital county. And then last but not least, just to note that we successfully completed all of the paperwork for the 2021 audit and have submitted our information for the GFOA award for the annual comprehensive financial report. Diane, how many years in a row?
This is going for the 29th.
29th year in a row for what's considered best of class in our annual financial reports and transparency. So congratulations to our Auditor Treasurer's Department.
Thank you. Congratulations, Diane. Okay, now we can move on to open forum. Do we have a list?
And do you want me to go over the rules for open forum?
Yeah, let's first see how many are on the list.
Madam Chair, we have 13 members signed up.
Okay, so I think we'll read and then make a decision how we want to move forward after we've heard the reading of the forum process, so.
The purpose of the open forum section of the county board meeting is to allow public input and/or information to be presented to the board that does not require action by the board. Personal attacks of any kind against another person, commissioner, or employee are not allowed. Campaign-type presentations are not allowed. The time limit is 3 minutes per speaker with a maximum of 5 speakers per open forum. The time limit may be shortened or extended at the discretion of the board chair. Discussions that require additional time beyond the original 15 minutes will be recessed and continued following the conclusion of the regular board business meeting agenda items. All input or information is to be addressed to the Board of Commissioners and not to members of the audience. Speaker handouts are public information. The county may make copies of such handouts for the public if needed. And the county board chair will ensure that the open forum policy is followed.
Okay, so we have, we can make some adjustments to the time. If we would do 2 minutes per speaker, then we could have how many speakers?
If you went for all of them, it'd be about a half hour. About 26 minutes.
About 26 minutes. I think we can try that.
Okay.
Okay, if it gets too long, you will have to make some adjustments, but if we can keep it to 2 minutes of presentation for 13 individuals, we can start with the first one.
I'd like to give one of my minutes to Rick Weibel, so he has.
We don't do that, sir.
I'm
Thank you.
sorry. 2 minutes each.
2 minutes is not enough. I'm saying you need to give us time to speak.
Sir, you're out of order. This is an official business meeting, sir. You're out of order.
Yeah, we'll look at your speech and adjust it. I think when you have to do something like that as possible. So we'll go ahead with 2 minutes and then give all 13 people an opportunity to speak, adjusted to that 2-minute interval. Okay, so who's first?
Madam Chair, first we have Rick Weeble of South Dakota speaking on Dominion voting machines.
Hello, my name is Rick Weibel, and I'm not specifically talking about the Dominion machines. I am from Elkton, South Dakota, but I could potentially be a resident of Sherburne because I'm within the 20 days before an election, so just want to pre-warn you that. I also have 14 years of elected public office experience here in the state of Minnesota, and I was the mayor for the city of St. Bonifacius, and there are significant concerns being raised here in Sherburne County that's going to require more than 2 minutes. And I am going to be here for the rest of your meeting, so that way you can ask me additional questions as it comes up in the agenda later on. And I would encourage you to ask me that. But you also need to understand that ignorance is not a defense. Just because you unknowingly break the law, you still break the law. So whether or not you saw the speed limit sign, you are actually breaking the law and you're still going to get a ticket. There are actually violations that you are potentially about to break in partnership with your municipalities, and that can be found in the devil of the details in actually 206.66, and any of those violations is actually a felony, and one of those pieces that is specific to Sherburne County is 206.58, the authorization for use of new equipment. You will have the Secretary of State's office as well as the letter that you received last week stating that this is not a new system. That is blatantly false. I have evidence with me today from the test lab who is authorized to make that determination, as well as the Election Assistance Commission email that specifically states that the system that you're going to is defined as a new system, and those pieces are actually supposed to have the 60-day notice by the municipalities and 6 weeks of public testing. And so we are trying to help us help you from committing a felony. And I would encourage you to go ahead and ask questions of me in your meeting. We'll be here to help.
Thank you. Number 2?
We have Gary Townseger of Elk River also speaking on Dominion voting machines.
I'd like to get my time when I'm ready and set up. I want to start it right away. Good morning. As we know, or we just said, my name is Gary Tonsiger. I'm from Elk River, and I have to talk quickly because I only have 2 minutes. I just here to talk about the Dominion voting machines once again and why they're so bad for the county of Sherburne County and actually the country. And I'm going to make it really simple because sometimes this type of conversation can be very difficult to understand. But the computers have 2 key components. They have an operating system and they have a server. In 2000, we purchased our voting system 4.14 in 2016 for over $500,000. It had an operating system of Windows 7, already obsolete when it walked out of the box practically, and then a Windows Server 2020. The support for that system expired in January of 2020. What does expired mean? It means Microsoft will no longer offer any support for the operating system, meaning it won't be long before those systems specifically are targeted and exploited. That happened for the 2020 election. And now we went on and did it again. We ended up spending another $500,000 or more on a new system, 5.5C, and that has an operating system of Windows 10. Right now, standard is Windows 11. So before you even get it out of the box, it's already obsolete. The server is Windows Server 2012. That expires in 2023 in October. That's before the next presidential election, a year before the next presidential election. So it's already broken. Just to let you know, too, that Windows Server 2022 is available, but no, we're getting 2012. So right away, We know that Microsoft will no longer offer this type of support for any operating system, meaning it won't be long before the systems are specifically targeted and exploited. That means in a year and a little less than
Sir,
a year,
your time's up.
our system will be junk.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for presenting.
Next, we have Steve Nelson of Elk River speaking on Dominion voting machines.
Good morning.
Morning.
Here we are again. I've said before, I really don't have time for this, and you'll excuse me. I'm gonna leave and go back to my duties as a business operator here when I get finished. But it's come to my attention that you guys don't feel like you have the power to control this decision. But yet I'm hearing that the Secretary of State is sending their minions around to boards, asking them to pass a resolution that they're going to continue to use these systems. If you don't possess that power, why would they have to ask you for a resolution? You know, this decision is upon this board. These citizens are here telling you that there's problems. Rick has just laid out that if you go forward now because of probably an oversight, you could be exposing yourselves in this county to litigation. Those laws are put there for a reason, and we expect them to be followed. To build off of what Gary said, I've become enlightened that, I mean, we buy a brand new server and they recommend that you put in server version 2012. I just got rid of 2016 in my business and it was making everything run like crap. So I don't understand that. These systems, if you look at the data of how they're built upon old and archaic software. Why is that? Why are we not on the cutting edge, particularly for something that's as important as our franchise as voters? So we expect you guys to do something. Right now, I'm asking that you be prepared to do a hand count of this primary election until we can get this sorted out, possibly for the general election.
Thank you.
Next, we have Kari Watkins of St. Cloud, also speaking on elections.
Madam Chair and Commissioners, we have brought you information about the vulnerabilities of electronic voting systems. We have given many examples of these and many quotes from voting electronic system experts who warn of these vulnerabilities. CISA even had to admit that one of the machines that had been tested because it involved an ongoing lawsuit in Georgia. It was found to have 9 significant vulnerabilities. We have asked for an opportunity to present more information and have been denied. We now find that simple election laws have been violated. No public notice, no public instruction, demonstration of new voting systems as required by Minnesota Statute 20658, Section 1. This 5.5C system that Sherburne County has purchased to use in the upcoming election is not a modified system from the previous system. It is a modified system from 5.0. 5.0 is a new system. EAC says it, and ProVMV testing labs say it. Therefore, the 5.5C system should have been announced, and it should have been available for public instruction demonstration. The new server is a Microsoft 2012 server. Why are we using a server from 10 years ago? There are components in this system that can use any username and password to turn it on and off. Parts of the system use 2007 technology. Would you use a bank that had a 10-year-old server and components within the system that could be accessed using any username and a password to turn it on and off? Or be confident in 2007 technology in 2022? How can a candidate or a voter have confidence in the election when these simple laws are not followed? The electronic voting system is almost outdated before it is used with technology that is 10 to 15 years old. I don't. We must not use electronic systems but manual hand count. There is nothing more important to our freedom than our vote, and you hold the key to preserving our precious vote. Hand count or no certification.
Thank you.
Next, we have Dean Dieterman of Elk River speaking about the evolution of the law.
Good morning, that's Dean Detterman. But at our last meeting, the evolution of the law was brought up. As the law evolves, it goes into chaos. The farther we get away from our Father, the faster the law evolves. For instance, in Nazi Germany, the law evolved to so rapidly we had to send in an army to stop the chaos. Our laws won't let us pump oil or finish the pipeline. We could be exporting oil, and we could block Russian oil, which is funding the war in Ukraine. We are seeing chaos with abortion. First it was 6 weeks, then it evolved into partial birth abortion, and now we are arguing about after-birth abortion. We are seeing this with the war on women. The law says men must be allowed into the women's restrooms, shower rooms, and locker rooms. And now men must be allowed to compete with them in sports. Women are losing scholarships and any monetary awards or recognition they might have otherwise received. In order to keep the chaos going, there is a need to stop fair and honest elections, because fair and honest people will stop the law from evolving. With new technology, we don't know who is running the voting machines or what the voting machines are doing. I am proposing an automatic hand recount after every machine has tallied its votes. The problem is it costs $14 a ballot to count with a machine, $7 a ballot to count by hand. This gets us to $21 a ballot. It would make more sense to hand count the ballots, saving the $14 a ballot. Maybe we could lower the taxes. I heard Sherburne County wants to raise taxes by 10%. The goal should be to lower taxes by 10%. Thank you.
Thank you. So next is,
Next, we have Nancy Hassett of Big Lake speaking about ICE.
Hi, I'm with Sanctuary and Resistance to Injustice and Union Congregational Church. The following testimony was dictated by Luis, not his real name, about his ICE detention in Sherburne Jail. Quote, I had a check-in at Whipple with immigration. I thought it was a regular check-in every 6 months for 15 to 30 minutes, having them check paperwork so I didn't get into trouble with immigration. Instead, I was brought to Sherburne County Jail, where I experienced some of the worst things I've experienced in my life. Sherburne did horrible things. I spent my birthday on lockdown for 2.5 months, 23 hours a day. There was 1 hour a day for shower, make a call, or grab something from a vending machine if you had any money. The first 4 days I got there, I was on lockdown. I wasn't communicated with. I couldn't make a call. They wouldn't let me take a shower. They wouldn't let me do anything. I was by myself, super cold. They didn't let me call anyone and only communicated when they felt like it. Their excuse is always COVID, but everyone was COVID-free because you are in lockdown when you come in. The food is disgusting. They do horrible things to break you down, so you will ask to sign your deportation papers. So the situation in the jail is really bad. Everyone is a Trump supporter, super racist, and say racist things to you. They mess with you. I call them the SS because that is what they really are. It's a concentration camp for immigrants. Food is rotten, potatoes every single day. They find any reason to lock you in. Out of nowhere, they locked us down for 2 minutes. Everyone was talking, playing cards, reading the Bible, and out of nowhere, we get a lockdown for 2 months. 4 days without calling family, your lawyer, anything. After 4 days, we went on a hunger strike. So then they brought us to the hole, which is the worst. After about a week and a half, I started talking to myself, laughing at my own jokes. Before the lockdown, they came like a SWAT team with dogs, weapons, rifles. They would step on you, bring the...
sorry, we have to, but you can leave.
Time is
your-
up.
Yep.
Next, we have Michelle from Woodbury speaking on elections.
Hello, my name is Michelle Whitty, and I'm Executive Director for the League of Women Voters of Minnesota with some of our residents from Sherburne County. And for more than 100 years, we've been a trusted source of nonpartisan voter registration and education and a longstanding witness to Minnesota's proud tradition of running fair and accurate elections. Sadly, misinformation about the 2020 elections is undermining voter confidence and fueling dangerous hostility toward election officials. Today, we ask you to ward off unfounded claims and instead affirm the strong evidence that you have at your disposal from across the political spectrum that show our elections were indeed fair and accurate. This evidence includes a 2018 audit requested by Senator Mary Kiffmeyer from right here in Sherburne County, conducted on voter registration by the Independent Office of the Legislative Auditor, which did not find significant numbers of ineligible voters or recommend any additional restrictions to voter access prior to the 2020 election, because their audit of the 2016 election in Minnesota found an error rate of less than 0.003%. Our election system also provides a tremendous system of safeguards for even when elections are close, thanks to your greatest resource of all, a trained professional staff who work every day to ensure voter access and election integrity for all voters. Public accuracy tests are conducted on your voting equipment, public viewing of audits are held after every election, and a formal complaint and public recount process already exists to address the very negligible errors that can occur, which you saw successfully managed by your election team here in Sherburne County in 2020. Your election staff need you right now to support their expertise and reaffirm their nonpartisan roles in running our elections. Please stand steadfast in your nonpartisan obligation to all voters and set policy which ensures that no one party can control the levers of our elections. We expect you as government officials to represent all constituents, not just those with allegiance to only one party, to remain committed to proven facts and sources rather than misinformation and drama, and to continue your proud tradition of maintaining access to free and fair elections that also protect the privacy of our voters and the safety of our election officials. Thank you so much for your ongoing service to the residents and voters of Sherburne County.
Thank you.
Next, Madam Chair, we have Eric Van Mechelen of Minneapolis speaking on Dominion voting systems.
Good morning, everyone. God is certainly moving here today, and I'm going to use my God-given rights to speak while I still can. We have January 6 political prisoners who were the tip of the spear in this fight still in prison. Now, we're here to speak to you, and we've asked, I've been here since April, but folks here have been here long before then, and I still don't see an agenda item, so we're forced to truncate our topics. However, it's very simple. When we look at the machines, when we look at the tabulators, and we look at the tabulation system, which is trusted by us to not only record through the scan, but tally and also report our votes accurately. The question to you, commissioners, is, do you 100% trust that the paper that is scanned into the system comes out the other side? Do you 100% trust that? I have seen votes flipped in Antrim County, Michigan. I have seen proof of database manipulation in Mesa County, Colorado. Those are both Dominion voting systems. The same vendor, the same software that we're using. It is baked into the software. In other words, by design, these manipulations are possible. So you've heard a lot of evidence. There's actually a mountain of evidence. So my question for you is, how much have you listened to and heard and taken a close look at? Because once you've taken a look at this, and Rasmussen polls show this across the country, including the Democrat concern with 2020 rising incredibly, you can't turn away. So from my perspective, it seems like so far you haven't taken a look, and I urge you to consider that. Use your discernment to take a look to protect our vote. Otherwise, we don't have a country. Now, finally, I would ask that you do ask Rick Weibel a few questions.
Sir, your time is up, please.
Thank you. He's traveled all the way from South Dakota on multiple occasions.
Thank you.
Next, Madam Chair, we have Richard Itones speaking about Dominion machines, and he is from Big Lake. Richard Itelms, Itelms.
I think that's Helms. Richard,
Or
that's you.
Helms.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak a little bit. I was here about a month or so ago in a meeting, and we talked about the Dominion machines and what's going on, and I've been assured by one of the county board members that the things have been resolved, and Secretary of State agrees that we're now certified to send our votes in. So I hope that's all true and all that sort of stuff, but the thing that concerns me is when I was here before, the Dominion guys said we had to update our system, and they've done that, I guess. And what's happening is, maybe it's not a part of what's happening in Sherburne County, but I had lunch with my sister who lives in Apple Valley, and she got 4 absentee ballots sent to her house. There was a guy here, the last time I was here, he was from the up in by towards St. Cloud in Sherburne County here, and he got 6 of them mailed to his house. Nobody catches that stuff. So we just got to do something with that, and I hope all the stuff is good with the Secretary of State on for Sherburne County. Thank you.
Next, we have Brett Collier of Big Lake, just says various.
Good morning, Brett Collier, Big Lake. I had 3 topics. I'll cut it down to 2. If you are the driver of a getaway car, it doesn't make any difference if you are not the person inside the bank with a gun robbing it. You are complicit in the crime. If you allow the county attorney treasurer to authorize the use of electronic voting systems that are not correctly certified and capable of being hacked, you are complicit in the removal of voter integrity. I also want to remind you that the accuracy test, as described by Ms. Arnold to the board on May 17th of this year, does nothing to show that the system cannot be hacked or programmed to sway the final vote. Running a test deck predetermined ballots only verifies whether or not random errors are generated and the ability of optical scanning functions. If I were to hack the system, I know this accuracy test is performed, and my hack would not affect that test. My hack would only affect the actual election day ballots, either applying a weight to or transferring the votes from one candidate to another. So again, these accuracy tests have no bearing on whether the equipment can or cannot be hacked, has been hacked, or maliciously programmed to sway a specific race. North Star, June 9th, Thursday, 32 cars in the lot. June 21st, Tuesday, 35 cars in the lot. June 27th, Monday, 26 cars in the lot. Ridership is still less than 10% of 2019. I know who's paying for this, the taxpayer, but who's making money on this boondoggle? I've brought this issue to your attention for years. Why have you not shut down this waste of money and resources? I got 30 seconds, I'll try this last one. Consent agenda. You've just approved a 454-page consent agenda. I've only gotten through the first 177 pages. So you really read this full document and have no problem with anything in it? I've seen hundreds of thousands of dollars authorized, some for items with no clear description of what they are or their justification. Have you ever not approved a grant request? Are there in-person meetings held for each
Mr.
of these
Collier, your
items?
2 minutes are up, sir.
This is fine. Thank you.
Next, we have Greg Felber, Big Lake, speaking on eminent dominion and eminent domain and public easement.
Good morning. Greg Felber, Orac Township Supervisor, candidate for District 3, Sherburne County Commissioner. I'm really pleased to see all these people out here today to talk about voter integrity because that is super important. However, I'm here to ask a Couple of questions about a different issue. Over the weekend, I was talking to a Sherburne County resident, and my understanding is that right now, the county roads are extending the easements to 50 feet on all county roads, and that we're using eminent domain to do that. My question, basically, since I was going to be here anyhow, I'd like to get information on why we have to have a 50-foot easement. 2, how are we funding it? And what the total acreage is being taken from our residents by use of government authority is. Where would be the best place for me to find that information?
Mr. Feldberg, I'll follow up with you and get you that information.
Thank you much. Thank you very much, Mr. Messel. That concludes it for me. Thank you.
Next, we have Lori Schmeldwerk from Elk River speaking on DFL. Lori spelled Lori. SCH.
It's right there.
We thought we were just signing in.
Oh, okay. That's okay.
No speaking.
Then next we have, let's see here, Kathleen Gahn of Princeton, speaking on voting rights.
I was thinking I was just signing in, and I'm not a public speaker, but I will say I've been a resident for 40 years, and I am a full-time caregiver, was a firefighter, was a police officer, and our country has fought so hard for voting rights since its inception, and I think it's really important that we make it as easy as possible, and I really believe that we have professionals that are making sure that our voting system is accurate and efficient, and there is some misconception out there about some of the issues that have been brought forth but are not correct, and I just guess I'll put my 2 cents worth in. Thank you.
Madam Chair, that concludes our speakers.
Okay, well, thank you very much. And now we can move on with our regular agenda. It is 9:38. So,
Madam Chair, members of the commission, with your permission, we'll just start with Lynn's items and go as close as we can to 10. And
okay.
Okay?
Okay. Good morning, Lynn.
Good morning. These are the items from the June Planning Commission meeting. First item is Rebecca and Jeremy Schneiderman. Property owners are Daniel and Pamela Bonin. They're requesting an interim use permit for a home business in an accessory building for a small engine repair shop. This is in Orac Township on 6.05 acres in the General Rural District. Planning Commission recommended approval with the 11 conditions and the findings of fact.
Madam Chair, I'll move approval
Motion.
as conditioned.
What was the last thing you said?
As conditioned.
Okay, motion has been made to approve with the conditions as listed. Is there a second?
Madam Chair, I'll second.
Is there a motion's been made and seconded? Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Motion passed.
Madam Chair, I'd like order in the room so we're able to hear the meeting proceedings.
if anybody wants to just step out for side conversations, you can do so and then come back in, but we just ask that it be quiet so we can record what's going on. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next item is Suburban Refuge. This is Suburban Builders, Curtis Bechtold. They're requesting final plat approval consisting of 8 lots. This is in Baldwin Township on 28.85 acres in the General Rural District. Planning Commission recommended approval of the final plat of Suburban Refuge with the 6 recommended conditions.
Madam Chair, I'll approve that recommendation with the stated conditions.
A motion's been made. Is there, to approve the action with the conditions, is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Motion's passed.
Next item is Jason Elbertine, property owners Jason and Brianna Elbertine, requesting an IUP for a home business and accessory building, motorcycle tuning, CNC artwork and signs. This is in Orac Township on 17.47 acres in the General Rural District. Planning Commission recommended approval with the 10 conditions and the findings of fact.
Okay. Anyone
Madam
like?
Chair, I'll move approval with the 10 conditions.
Okay, motion and finding of fact. Okay. Motion's been made. Is there a second?
Second?
Motion's been made and seconded to approve with the conditions and findings of fact. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed, nay. Motion's passed.
And the last item is Knife River Corporation. Property owners are Louis and Janet Stark Revocable Trust. They're requesting an interim use permit amendment for a gravel mine. This is in Haven Township on 134.8 acres in the Agricultural District and within the Shoreline Overlay District of the Elk River. Planning Commission recommended approval with the 34 conditions and the findings of fact.
Madam Chair, I'll move approval along with the 34 conditions.
A motion's been made to approve with the 34 conditions. Is there a second?
Madam Chair, I'll second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Is there any discussion?
I just want to make a few comments. This one solicited quite a bit of discussion and quite a bit of input from the neighbors, and there were some changes made to accommodate the neighbors' requests with hours of operation and things like that. So
Yes, they took into consideration both the neighbors and the township's comments.
the township's comments and the neighbors' comments. So just wanted to make those comments.
And I'll just add to that, you know, with all of these, they've been through a pretty rigorous process with the county. We have a planning commission that everything is presented to, and that is where the public hearing is held. And so we go through them pretty quick, but they've gone through a lot to get to us, so.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed, nay. Motion's passed.
And I believe that's everything. Thank you.
Thanks, Lynn.
And Boof. So, we still have time to,
I think we can do item 5,
okay,
and then if we want, you know, if the board wants, we could ask Mr. Medea if he would like to move up a little bit. Dan needs about 15 minutes to talk about ARPA, but we could invert item 7 and 6 if you want after 5, so.
okay. So,
Good morning, Commissioners and Madam Chairman. I'm here before you this morning to present a request to consider the appointment of the county commissioners to the County Canvassing Board to canvass the results of the August 9th primary, and that's going to be held on Friday, August 12th, and for the November 8th general election on Wednesday, November 16th. The request is to appoint 2 county commissioners who are not candidates on the 2022 ballot to serve on the County Canvassing Board to canvass the results of the August 9th primary and the November 8th general election, along with an alternate commissioner in the event one cannot attend. So this is a requirement that is brought before you for the Canvassing Board. So the Canvassing Board will consist of 2 county commissioners, the Chief Deputy County Auditor Treasurer, Court Administrator or appointee, the Mayor of the City of Elk River or an appointee, and 3 members equal a quorum according to Minnesota Statutes 204C.31. And the other duties are spelled out in Minnesota Statute 204C.32 and 33, which I attached for your information. So the 2022 Canvassing Board also has a duty to set the date, the time, and location for the post-election review, which includes a manual recount of the U.S. Senate, the U.S. Representative, District 6, Governor, and Lieutenant Governor returns, and from the Election Day activities. during the general election for precincts in Sherburne County. Now, with the voter registration, which we are over 50,000, we would be selecting 3 precincts to randomly to do hand counts of those ballots. And that review will be taking place in the government center here where our ballots are secured. And we will, at that time, when we do the canvassing, we'll be setting the time, date, and place from when we do the primary canvassing. So with that, I would like to turn it back over to you and to appoint our county commissioners, 2 county commissioners, to be on our county canvassing board.
Madam Chair, members of the commission, just a note for the board. I did have a chance to connect with Commissioner Dolan, who is not on the ballot. He is amenable to serving as the alternate, but would request that he not serve as one of the primary.
Okay. Would anyone like to?
Well, I think it's pretty simple.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's pretty obvious.
It's going to be Lisa and I.
But the August 12th date is problematic for me. I'm
Oh.
out of town.
Okay, you're out of town that day. Okay.
Is there some flexibility on that date?
It just depends on how soon we can get everything canvassed. We could try to do it earlier. It's just going to put a lot of, we want to make sure we've got all the information in and everything's been verified.
Yeah,
you
we
know,
don't
that
want
we
to
have
rush.
accurate reports.
Actually, I would recommend pushing it later.
Later?
Yeah.
Okay. So then the following Monday would be the 16th, correct?
Well, unless, you need 2 of us or 1 of us?
Well, actually, we need 1 of you, and if the other board members are, so 3 members constitute a quorum, you know, for the canvassing board. So if you're not able to make it, or if you could, you know, appoint someone else, if Commissioner Dolan would be available as an alternate, I don't know if that would be sufficient at that time.
I'm available, yeah.
So what is the date we're talking about?
August 12th?
Friday, August 12th.
Yep, Friday, August 12th.
So with Felix available, maybe Felix will be the person and Tim be the alternate for that date. And then for the November, I would be available for that. And perhaps Felix the alternate.
Actually, we need 2,
We need
so
2.
we would just appoint you and Felix for both. Tim is the alternate, and then if you can't make it, then Tim slides in.
Okay, got it.
And even if Tim and you can't make it, as long as there's 3 of the total board, it's a quorum.
Okay. So
Yeah.
the 2 of us and Tim being the alternate, both for the August primary and the November election. And I will make that motion.
Okay, motion's been made. Is there a second?
I'll second that. We're going to do it by motion.
Or
Do we
what?
need a motion for that?
Okay, that's fine.
Okay, so a motion's been made and seconded to appoint 2 county commissioners who are not candidates, which are 2 right here, and have Dolan, Congress,
As the alternate.
As
as
al-
alternate, yeah. And so, all those, is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Motion is passed.
Thank you. Then I will be sending out a follow-up letter to each of you with the outlining the dates and the times and so forth. So we'll do further communications with you. And as it gets closer, we'll send reminders.
Yeah, Madam Chair, and Diane, if you'll send a calendar.
A calendar outlook, yep.
Yeah, that would be great. That'd be helpful. Thank you.
We can do that. Thank you.
Thank you.
And then with the board's permission, if we go to agenda item 7, Ms. Arnold will begin that item.
Oh, okay, we'll skip to number 7.
Thank you. Did you,
If you're okay, we'll skip 6 and come back to it, just because Dan's going to need more than 10 minutes for ARPA.
Okay, but if we're going to go to item 7 to receive this update, are there people in the hallway that were, you know, we told them they
There
could
is a
leave and we'd do it at 10
Yeah,
o'clock. So
there is a monitor, but I'll walk out there as well, sir.
make sure that we
Yep.
aren't leaving anybody out.
okay. And thank you. Here with us today is David Maeda, which is the Director of Elections for the state of Minnesota. And he is here going to be talking about some of the election processes and the things that the state has done and the involvement that they are in the securing of our Minnesota elections. So with that, I will turn it over to David.
Thank you, Diane, and good morning, members, Chair and members of the board. As Diane mentioned, my name is David Maeda. I'm the Director of Elections for the Minnesota Office of the Secretary of State. Just as way of background, I'll talk a little bit about my career in elections. I have been involved off and on in election administration for 26 years. My first election that I administered was in 1996, the state primary and the presidential election that year. I was the Washington County election supervisor during that period. I moved on to become the Hennepin County election supervisor in the mid-2000s, and then the bulk of my career was actually spent as a city clerk of the city of Minnetonka. And as you are probably aware, one of the duties city clerks have is administering elections for the city. I've been fortunate to be able to take some leadership roles throughout my career in elections. When I was with Hennepin County, I was the chair of the Association of Minnesota County Officers Elections Committee, and serving in Minnetonka, I chaired the League of Minnesota Cities Elections Task Force. So I've been heavily involved with shaping election administration processes and procedures throughout my career, and I was appointed to this position in January of 2019. It's been a great opportunity to further the work in elections administration. I am here today to speak to you on the reasons our election systems are secure, accurate, and fair. And as Diane mentioned, I'll go through some of the processes that are in place that have been in place for most of my career to ensure that. Some of the processes are newer as we have proceeded to learn more about election and keeping them secure. One of the things I'll mention that's a great opportunity for myself, in 2016, elections was designated as critical infrastructure by the Department of Homeland Security. And what that means is myself and others in our office are able to get classified briefings on a regular basis from our federal partners at Homeland Security, the FBI. We also work with our state partners, the BCA, the Fusion Center, and Minute, which is the branch of IT for the state government, to make sure our systems are secure. In early 2020, one of the things we did was we followed Illinois' lead in creating what's called a Cyber Navigator program. Illinois has 10 of them. We were able to hire one. I was fortunate enough to offer the job and hire a former Navy intelligence officer to become our Cyber Navigator. His name is Bill Ekblad. He has hit the ground running. He has worked with all 87 counties, not only the election staff, but the IT staff as well, to make sure there's a nexus between the election systems and IT, to make sure that they are aware of all the resources available that mostly from Homeland Security, but there are things available to make sure that all county systems that touch anything elections related are secure. And so Bill works with all 87 counties on a daily basis. The good news is last month we actually doubled our team. Bill was able to hire a deputy cyber navigator that will make our system even more robust. But that's a very important piece of what we have done since 2016. Diane, first of all, I want to thank everyone that has come out to talk today, because obviously there's a lot of passion for elections. In my 26-year career, I think I share that passion. We all want to make sure our elections are done right. But some of the things that have already been mentioned, I'll kind of elaborate more on, and some of the pieces we have in place to ensure our elections are indeed accurate and secure. Before any voting equipment is used in our state, it requires both federal certification and state certification. The federal certification comes through an accredited test lab, the Election Assistance Commission, which is the big federal agency overseeing elections, finds different test labs. They accredit them based on certain criteria. So it first has to get certified at a federal testing lab, and it's a very thorough examination of the voting system all the way down to the source code level. So they're looking at everything to make sure that the voting systems work the way they're supposed to work. When the vendor is done with the federal certification process, they come to us for state certification. What we require, among other things, is a copy of that test lab report. And so we go through the report to make sure that it covered everything we need covered. And then we put the election system through vigorous testing to make sure it meets Minnesota state election law. Everything in Minnesota election law has to be met by our state certification. And basically, a lot of that comes through running hundreds and hundreds of ballots through each of the different tabulators that the vendor associates with that version of their election management system to make sure that all their equipment is working correctly. And once we're done certifying, we notify the counties. At this time, we have 3 election vendors in our state that have certified voting systems. The vast majority of the state uses election system and software, which is ES&S, a company out of Nebraska. They're used in 78 of our counties. 6 counties, including yours, use Dominion, and then we have a third vendor called Hart InterCivic that is used in 3 counties. I met last week with a 4th vendor that wants to get their system certified in Minnesota in 2023, so we'll keep an eye on that. Competition in any of the vendors I've always supported. I think we get better service from vendors when there's options available for our county and local partners. Testing was talked about a little bit. I'm not so dismissive of the public accuracy testing. It's a very important part of the process because it is a public test. And it doesn't just happen in a vacuum. Diane and her staff, all our local partners that have voting equipment, they test the equipment very thoroughly prior to the public test because a public test cannot have any errors. It has to be a completely error-free test. If it's not, they have to reschedule the public accuracy test and show that the equipment is 100% accurate going into election day. So that's a very important part to know that our election systems are working the way they're supposed to work. The other piece I'll mention, so on election day, I think people get a little bit, they look at our website and think those are official results. They are not, they're unofficial results. The actual official results from any of our voting equipment is the tabulator tape that contain, in the morning, the election judges run a tape that show nobody has a vote on the ballot, or in the tabulator, so a 0 tape. And then at the end of the night, and it's all connected to one tape, they run the results tape, and that's what the election judges are certifying at the polling place on election night, that the number of ballots in the ballot box matches the number of signatures of the people that have signed the roster or e-poll book. And I think if those numbers don't balance, they have to balance. I mean, our law, if there's more ballots in the ballot box than the number of people that have signed in, our law requires the election judges to randomly remove excess ballots, not count them. So that is where the certification, I think there's questions about how, when you canvass the results and certify your county results, where that comes from. That's where it comes from. It comes from the very end of voting on election night. The election judges are really closely making sure that the number of ballots counted that night matches the number of people that have signed in. There are similar processes in place for counting absentee ballots. Again, you're looking at the number of signature envelopes that have been accepted by the ballot board and comparing that with an actual number of ballots that got counted. So there is rigorous looking at data before you canvass your election results, and that's done in all 87 counties. The post-election review, Diane mentioned in her comments, what that, and so I should back up. So this actually came into play, or into place in 2006 when I was the Hennepin County Election Supervisor. I was approached by a group called Citizens for Election Integrity Minnesota. And they had seen what had happened in the Ohio 2004 presidential election where Ohio went to touchscreen voting. Our state never went to touchscreen voting. We always believe that the paper ballot is vital in determining the final results. So what this group wanted us to do was hand counts, an audit of the election, but when they came to me, they wanted a very detailed, thorough audit, and credit to them. I mean, we want to make sure that our voting systems are reading ballots correctly, but as election administrators, we have a lot of work to do after election night. We have to get the canvassing boards the information they need to certify the results. So we kind of landed on a compromise, and Diane very thoroughly walk through what you're going to be doing this fall. So all 87 counties at your canvass of the November general election randomly select precincts in your county, and the number that are randomly counted depends on the registered voter count in your county. So in Sherburne, it's 3, in Hennepin, it's more, and I don't have the exact number. But so the random precincts throughout the county are selected, and then races are hand counted in each of those precincts. And as Diane mentioned, this year it's the governor's race, the U.S. representative race. In 2020, it was the presidential race, the U.S. Senate race, and the U.S. congressional race. So they're hand counted and compared against the results that were the machine counted on election night. If the difference is more than 0.5%, then more precincts are chosen to be hand counted. If the differences still continue to be found in different precincts, then the entire county has to be recounted. This began in 2006. Ever since that process has begun, we never had to escalate to more precincts. That's how accurate our voting equipment is shown to be. I also mentioned in 2020, we had 5 legislative recounts. And it just so happened that all 3 vendors' equipment were used in those 5 districts. So Sherburne was in part of the Senate District 14 recount. There was Ramsey County, which is a Hart InterCivic customer, and then again, most of the other precincts are ES&S. But it was fortunate because we got to see all 3 voting systems counted votes accurately in 2020. And I think that's really key to note. The other thing I'll note is I actually met Mr. Ribel in the 2012 gubernatorial recount. We were both there at the Hennepin County Government Center, me as an election administrator, he as an observer. I remember the conversation we had well, so it's good to see you tonight, Mr. Ribel. But I mentioned that because so our state in its history has only had 4 statewide recounts. The 1962 gubernatorial race, in 2008, we actually had a Supreme Court statewide recount in the state primary, and we all kind of laughed about, oh, this is the second statewide recount we've ever had to face. Isn't this terrible? But of course, counting that one race in a low turnout primary wasn't that difficult. Then the U.S. Senate 2008 recount happened, and as you know, that went far into the next year before the winner was declared. But I mentioned that, and then the 2012 gubernatorial recount was the 4th one. The reason I mentioned that, all these recounts show our systems work. You can say, well, in 2008, Senator Coleman was ahead, and then afterward, Senator Franken was declared the winner, but the reason came down to rejected absentee ballots, and that all got litigated. Senator Franken got more absentee ballots counted than Senator Coleman, but again, that was all examined in the courts, and that's the way election contests happen. Any disputed election should be going through the recount process, and then if that's still questionable, then you go through an election contest, and that's all spelled out in statute. I'll kind of conclude my remarks with a couple things. The push for hand counts concerns me greatly. I'll say why. Your smallest precinct in Sherburne County is Haven Township Precinct 2, which has 93 registered voters. You think, well, it shouldn't be that difficult to count 93 ballots, but it's not a matter of counting 93 ballots in that township. Every ballot in November in your county will have at least 38 races on it. So federal, state, county, and judicial races. There are 38 contests that will be on every ballot in Sherburne County. I didn't look at your cities, school districts, and township races, but obviously many of them will have them as well. So it's over 40 races. Each race has to be counted individually. So you're not just counting the 93 ballots in Haven Township, you're counting 93 ballots over 40 times. Your largest precinct is actually Becker Township, which has it's about 3,700 registered voters, so they would end up counting over 142,000 ballots. This all has to be done in 24 hours. All the materials from the polling place have to come back to Diane at the county within 24 hours. To count 142,000 ballots, that is not even a remote possibility. I'll also name, at every recount that I've participated in, it's the human errors that show up. So the recount process, if you're not aware, or the hand count process, if you're not aware, is you take the stack of ballots from the precincts, you give candidate A over here, candidate B, candidate A, and again, in a recount, it's 2 candidates, and many of your elections in November, it'll be multiple candidates. So you separate them into candidate piles, and then you count up these for candidate A into piles of 25, crisscrossing them. do the same over here, so you can count 25, 50, 75, 100, 106 votes in this pile. What we see in every recount, what we see during the post-election review is that people count piles of 24 or 26, and it throws it off. In the recounts, it's kind of easy to fix because you know what the machine read, so we think, well, that doesn't match, we should probably count the ballots again, and that happens in every recount, that some pile of ballots gets miscounted by humans. And I guess, so hand counts are less accurate than machine counts. It's been shown time and time again. They're more costly. It's not cheaper. I know someone mentioned it's half the cost. It's not. If you are seriously considering doing a hand count on election night, you don't want election judges that have been there since 6 in the morning through 10 at night now trying to accurately hand count ballots. You're going to want to bring in a fresh set of eyes. At the very minimum, you're going to want to do that to ensure that there is a more accurate count. And then there's no mechanism, as I mentioned, to know if you miscounted, because you're typically only going to count them once on election night. So if there are errors in the count, you're not going to know that. Someone can request a recount, obviously, but the threshold for a publicly paid recount is 0.5% in most races. In some races in our state, it's 0.25%. And so the exact number that the two candidates are off, you need to know that. And I'll back up. During our post-election review, there was a 2021 election law change that was pushed by the Citizens for Election Minnesota Integrity that helped create the law in 2006. From 2006 until 2020, the threshold was 0.5%. So if it deviated from the machine 0.5%, the hand count, then that's when it would trigger more precincts to be counted. In 2021, that was lowered. It's pretty close to 0.5%. Now, again, it's based on the total number the count is off versus the total number of ballots cast, and that's all spelled out in statute, but it's pretty close to being 0.5%. We supported that law. We know our voting equipment is that accurate. The other reason you don't want to go to hand counts, and Senator Kiffmeyer was then Secretary Kiffmeyer, one of your residents, when the 2002 Help America Vote Act law was passed, she was our Secretary of State, and we got federal money to replace her voting equipment. One of her things, and I give her credit for it, was she wanted an optical scan voting device in every precinct, because at the time, many of our greater Minnesota polling places would bundle their ballots up from the polling place on election night, bring it back to their county government center to be centrally tabulated. One of the reasons Senator Kiffmeyer, and I agree with her, thought this wasn't fair because Metro County voters that had optical scan precinct count were able to, if you run a ballot through a precinct count machine, it catches error. So when the upcoming state primary, less than a month from now, happens, I guarantee there's going to be ballots throughout Minnesota where the voter crossover votes, meaning they vote for candidates in different political parties. They're not allowed to do that under our law. The machine catches that and tells the voter, we're not going to count your ballot. And the voter is then given the option to correct their ballot to make sure it gets counted. If you're hand counting, the voter doesn't have that chance. And that's why Senator Kiffmeyer really pushed for optical scan voting devices in every single precinct in the state. And I will conclude my remarks now with part of the post-election review that our office gets involved with. So after Diane is done hand counting the ballots in her 3 randomly chosen precincts, that goes into a pool statewide, and we select random precincts out of that existing pool, and we do a more thorough audit of all the materials that were used in the election. And Diane probably wasn't too big a fan of mine, but we really expanded what we had been doing previous to my starting in this position, because I had been a victim of being chosen for one of these things when I was a Minnetonka city clerk, and it's a lot of extra work to pull together all these materials and then have somebody from the county just kind of hand count. It's an audit, but it was a very dry audit, let's say. There was no communication. In Minnetonka, you should have done this better. In Minnetonka, you did this great. So I wanted to incorporate that into our 2021, when we reviewed the 2020 election. So we asked for far more materials from the counties. We did get some pushback, but all counties eventually complied. And it wasn't to punish people or look for things that were wrong. Really, my focus was on Since we are required to do a training of all 87 counties, I wanted to find common mistakes that were being made in Minnesota, and that was on us if there were common mistakes, because if different counties are doing this exact same thing incorrectly, I wanted to know about it, and we would make sure we train better on that. The other thing is it gave me actual data to come speak before boards like you today. I know better what actually happened on the ground in 2020 because of talking to many county auditors during this process. I didn't participate. Diane had a mail ballot precinct selected in Princeton. I did not participate in that one. I did try to sit in on as many as I can, and I promise this is my closing remark, but the one that really sticks to mind was in Brown County where the county auditor was retiring. And I did do that audit. And the night before I was reviewing all these materials she had submitted, and I got to her city clerk township training, which is a video, at about 10 o'clock at night. I thought, well, I'll just kind of watch some of it to get the flavor of what she was doing. I watched the entire 2 hours because it was a tremendous reminder of all the many election administrators I've been fortunate to work with throughout my 26-year career, including Diane, including all our current county auditors. They did a remarkable job in 2020 running an election in a pandemic. And so I was really thankful that Jean in Brown County did this. It was just a simple video with her standing in front of a projected PowerPoint. So it wasn't like fancy, it wasn't spellbinding, but it was just, she covered everything just great, the exact same way I would have covered it myself. And so the dedication from all our 87 local partners at the counties and our cities and township partners, everyone did a tremendous job in 2020. And I just want to thank them publicly for that. And with that, I will certainly stand for any questions. You probably have a question about the 206.58.
Thank you very much. I have a question about 206.58. Yeah, just clarify some.
It's like you're reading our minds.
Yeah.
So respectfully, I would say that I read the test lab report exactly opposite of Mr. Reibel. What the test lab report is showing is that when Dominion certified its system originally, it was 5.0, the version that was being used. And that's what's in the test lab report, it says new system 5.0. But if you read to the very next line that you were copied on, it says 5.5, and that's what they were trying to get certified, the upgrade to 5.5. And under that, it clearly says modification of an existing certified system. If you read the entire report, it's repeatedly mentioned it's a modification of an existing voting system. I think the analogy I would use is I'm a devoted iPhone user, and periodically Apple will push out iOS updates to me. I can choose to install it, I can choose not to install it. I install it because often it's related to security. But once I install that updated iOS update, I don't have a new iPhone. I have an updated iPhone. Certainly it might function a little differently. It's probably a lot more secure or a little bit more secure, but it's not a new phone. And I think that's analogous to what 206, the entire chapter, many provisions in that provide for. Because I would also point to 206.56, which defines what an electronic voting system is. And it's a laundry list, everything down to a pen, to the secrecy sleeves that are typically manila envelopes that voters use to keep their votes private. That's included in the definition of a voting system. So if you really want Diane to do these public demonstrations every time she buys new pens, I think that's beyond the scope of the statute. And I think to address the concern, well, why aren't we getting a public demonstration? I'd point back to the public accuracy test. The public accuracy test gets at any upgrade to any part of the system, the machine is still reading ballots accurately.
Sir, would you do a follow-on on that real quick while the commissioners are thinking of their other questions? So if, I'm assuming you've spoken with your in-house legal counsel on your interpretation of statute, as have we. If a group disagrees respectfully with your interpretation of statute, is there recourse, as you noted, in the courts then?
Yes.
Okay, and has anybody challenged in the courts yet that interpretation?
I'm sorry, no, there have not been any challenges in court.
All right, thank you, sir. And one other follow-on then, and the public accuracy test, we are still scheduled to do that, is that correct?
You would have to check with Diane, but it's a requirement of state statute, so I'm
Okay.
almost 100% sure she is going to do that.
So in your opinion, that's sufficient then with this new software upgrade to demonstrate still the validity of the software system?
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Madam Chair, so there is a legal option. I mean, obviously in this room, there's disagreement. And they could bring forth a case, I don't know, would it be district court or where? So that's, and that's probably where this is going to have to play out, in my mind.
Because, Madam Chair, Commissioners, even if we agreed that with the interpretation of 206.58, that this, Mr. Weibel is correct, we couldn't tell Diane she has to do that. Again, we don't have the authority to do that. The county is the one that is in charge of its voting processes, and if there's a dispute, it would still go to court.
Madam Chair, may I throw in a question? There was also a question about recounts. And our understanding of statute is that should a candidate choose to ask for a hand recount, even if it's beyond the 0.5%, that is allowed under state statute, although it's at the candidate's expense. Is that what I understand?
Yes, that is correct. Any losing candidate can request a recount. The difference being if it's beyond the threshold for a publicly funded count, then the candidate has to pay for it. And typically how that's done is the candidate will pick like 3 precincts from the district to first have counted, and once they see the machines are working in those 3 precincts, they typically call off the rest of the recount. But
And is
they
that-
certainly can have it go to the end.
Is that what happened with the Senate recount in District 14 then?
I'm going from memory, but I believe that was what happened.
So it is a candidate's choice to ask for a hand recount.
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
I had one question. There was a comment made earlier in regards to ballots being mailed to people's houses. Could you clarify on that? Is that actually ballots being mailed, or is that by organizations that are mailing things that look like ballots to get you to understand that you have that option?
Madam Chair, Commissioners, that's a great question. We heard that often in the 2020 election. Everybody I talked to that had that scenario arise, they were talking about absentee applications. There were groups, nonprofit groups, political groups that were mailing out absentee applications to voters across their states. So many voters, including myself, got multiple applications. I have not heard any voter got an actual ballot. And it's almost impossible because once an application is received by a county, they create an absentee record within the statewide voter registration system that's unique to that voter in that ballot. So if the voter submits a second application, the county can certainly follow up and say, did you screw up your first one? Do you want a new ballot? Before they issue the new ballot, they have to spoil their initial ballot. So no voter can have multiple ballots in SVRS.
So for clarification, you're saying that what came to people's mailboxes from various organizations to encourage you to sign up for absentee balloting, you would have taken one of those down to where your ballot, your polling place was. You would have presented it for your ballot to then vote, but you would only get that opportunity once.
Correct.
No matter how many came to your house.
Correct.
Thank you.
I did hear one case, I think it was in December, where somebody claimed to have 2 ballots. When they opened up the 2 ballots, one was the state primary and one was the state general. They didn't remember applying for both ballots. And before anybody, now that I have the floor, but before anybody, if anyone's question, well, can someone absentee vote and then show up at their polling place and vote? No, they can't, because again, it's all tracked in the statewide voter registration system. Any accepted absentee ballot, the voter's signature line gets an AB put on the signature line, so if that voter were to show up, they can't vote.
And then, Madam Chair, in regards to the safety and security of the voting equipment and the transmission of Could you go into a little bit of detail about the process that is done to assure that we have secure transactions of that information?
Sure. Madam Chair, members of the board. So modems have been used in our state basically since 1998. Hennepin County is the first one to implement modems in their voting equipment. So it's been used throughout since 1998. There is a prohibition in statute that the modems cannot be activated until the official results tapes are run. And so again, I mentioned before the actual official results are printed on that tape, any results that get transmitted up to our office, they're unofficial until the state canvassing board certifies election.
So then that gets double-checked and verified? And it's my understanding that these transmission portals are like encrypted, they're basically given out just for that period of time, and then they are deleted and no longer used. Weren't used prior, will not be used after.
Madam Chair, members of the board, that is correct. The modems that are used in other industries, such as the banking industry, where it's very important to keep the data private. So there are it's encrypted. There are various measures put in place that ensure that the data is not corrupt when it gets back to who's ever, typically the county, getting it back.
Madam Chair, may I?
Yes.
Just a quick follow-on on the absentee ballots. Was some of the confusion that there were multiple organizations sending out absentee ballot applications and then with that sample ballots? I seem to recall even at my house getting, a couple. I don't recall being totally confused, but is that something that your office is looking at and there may be a legislative solution to further clarify that you don't get pseudo ballots in the mail to confuse voters?
There actually was legislation proposed in both the House and Senate in 2021 that addressed that very issue. I think in both the House and Senate version of the bill, it required any application to be clearly marked as not coming from government, number one, and that this is an application. There was language in one of the houses, and I don't remember which body it was, that dealt with the sample ballot issue, basically saying they didn't want sample ballots being sent out by private organizations. There was no agreement in conference committee. It did not pass.
Anyone else have any?
think-
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate your
Madam
time.
Chair, I think if you're okay with it, we should probably take a recess then,
Okay.
so that Dan can get set up for the ARPA discussion.
Uh,
This is not scheduled as a public hearing or public discussion. It's a presentation to the board. Thank you.
Okay, well, we'll take how long?
Let's do 10 minutes so that Dan can get set up.
Okay, we'll do a 10-minute break and reconvene at 10:30.
10:35.
10:35.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay. call our meeting back to order, and we will begin with item number 5.6, to consider the ARPA update and recommended approvals and expenditures with Dan Weber.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Welcome.
We do have 3 biweekly expenditures that are under that $50,000 threshold for a total of $27,519.77, and the details were included in your packet. So looking for approval on those expenditures.
Madam Chair, I'll make that motion.
Okay, a motion has been made to approve the biweekly expenditures listed here under $50,000 for a total of $27,519.77. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded. Is there a discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Motion passed.
Next up, we do have 2 expenditure requests above the $50,000 threshold. The first is our ADP countywide payroll software. This is a software that we were going to use Yes Account funds for, and we're trying to transition that to the ARPA funds. It would require a contract change because we do have a contract already signed, and I'll work with Tim Syme to see if we can get that added as an ARPA expense. We're looking for the $175,000 expenditure approval for the ADP software.
I'll move approval, Madam Chair.
Motion's been made to approve. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve. Is there any further discussion?
That's a one-time
funds.
One-time expense.
One-time
so-
project.
Okay. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Motion's passed.
The second expenditure request is for 8 sheriff squad cars. 6 are marked, 2 unmarked, for a total of $258,000. Public safety is an allowable expense under the ARPA guidelines.
Madam Chair, I'll move approval.
Motion's been made to approve the sheriff's squad cars. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion?
And this is also a one-time expense. And these cars will go for what, 3, 4, what do we normally have them in the rotation cycle?
That's a good question. Sheriff, do you know how long we keep each sheriff, or each squad car?
How long do one of our squad cars last in the rotation cycle?
Do we run pursuit cars 4 years, Sheriff?
Okay. So we have more of a mileage threshold. Got it. All right, thank you.
And then to answer your question, it's a recurring expense for capital.
Yes.
But by us using ARPA, when we have the ARPA funds, we're saving reserve funds.
Yep.
Okay.
All right, thank you for that clarification.
Any further discussion?
Just the last car the sheriff had was, how old was that? 10 years, 15? That was.
What exactly are you saying about mileage?
At any rate, it was a good thing he had a radio in it, because we weren't so sure if we'd get there when we left sometimes.
Good.
Okay, any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed, nay. Motion's passed.
Okay, now we're going to transition to broadband, and there'll be 2 separate discussions to talk about. The first discussion involves 2 applications that were submitted under our existing program that was approved back in November and December. And it's a 2021 broadband access program, and the applications are from both Santiago and Becker townships. And then we'll pivot to a second discussion that will focus on a recent request from ARVIG to partner on 2 deed border-to-border broadband applications. The project areas for these projects include Clear Lake and Haven townships, and a separate application for the city of Elk River. I'd prefer to summarize both projects before we make any motion or any decisions on both of those.
Okay.
So Keisha, you have the map up right now. The first 2 projects we're going to discuss, as I mentioned, are in Santiago and Becker townships. Those are the projects in the middle. And then the second projects we'll talk about are in the Clear Lake Haven area, and then the far east of the map on the Elk River side. So I'm going to summarize these. I'm going to throw a lot of numbers at you. Please interrupt me if you have any questions. The first is in Santiago Township. It has 72 passings. They're requesting a county contribution of $276,000. The township did contribute $5,000. We had requested $75,000. However, our policy only requires some level of contribution, so they would be eligible to move this forward if you so choose. It scored a 47 out of 100, so it would be one of our lower projects, and that is due to the lower township financial participation, the reduced number of project passings, and it is requesting 60% of the total project costs. So that scored a 47 out of 100, so remember that number as we move forward. The next project in Becker Township is 42 passings for a county contribution of $252,000. They also contributed $5,000 to the project if it were to move forward. And it scored a 42 out of 100, so that one was even lower. However, in order for the Santiago project to move forward, Becker would have to be approved as well. They are contingent on each other just because of the infrastructure needs for Midco. Keisha, can you bring up the other document?
Quickly,
Yeah.
the ask for San Diego was 75,000, and the ask for Becker was?
They were both 75,000 to contribute, and they both 5.
How had that been given, how would that have affected the scoring?
25 points they would have received for a $75,000 contribution. 5,000 was a percentage out of 75, so we gave them 2 points out of 25 to equal their percentage contribution of the request, matches the percentage of requests. So they received 2 points for that parameter of the project.
And they made the full contribution, okay.
And this is a full summary of the projects. You can see the total projects that we have already approved. Livonia and Elk River scored at 95 and 70. So this is a 47 and a 42. So just keep that number in mind. And then we're going to pivot to the border-to-border projects.
Madam Chair, before you pivot, Dan, those other 2 projects are scored higher. That would have been with that 25 point for full contribution
Correct.
of ask?
Correct, yes.
So then if you would deduct that out, if they wouldn't have done that, we'd be similar down to?
Well, those were larger passings. If you see, they had 169 and 247, so they would have scored more
Scored
points on
higher
that
than that.
parameter as well.
All right, thank you.
And then the other grant project costs, you can see the Livonia one, they only requested about 12.5% of the project costs, where these projects were 56 and 63%. So they scored lower on those parameters as well.
And just for clarification, Dan, those projects came in prior to the funding opportunities that the townships first had were limited on what they could use their funds for, and then there was a change? and
No, they
could-
all came under the same program. It's just the township acted on them later in the process.
Okay,
So Livonia and Elk River voted, I think, back in January already, where Becker and Santiago had several discussions, and it was just voted on last month.
okay,
So that's why it took a little longer for us to bring that in front of you today.
all right, thank you.
So pivoting to the border-to-border programs, ARPA has reached out to partner on a border-to-border program. There are 2 separate grants they will be applying for. The first is in the Haven Clear Lake Township area. It would have 212 passings. It is asking for a county contribution of about $644,000, but it did score an 85 out of 100. And that would be the additional passings, the lower project costs of the total cost. They're only asking for 30% from the county. And we are assuming the state would participate in that, so they would get the maximum points for that as well. The next application is for the city of Elk River. That one has 42 passings at a county contribution of about $163,000, and that project scored 80 out of 100. They are looking for a commitment letter. These are obviously applications to the state of Minnesota, so there's no guarantee these will be awarded. In the past, they have to kind of distribute the projects throughout the state. So the odds of us receiving funds for both projects are probably pretty nil, but it could happen. So today we were asking to commit to the project, the county would need to renew their old broadband access program that we had ended on December 31st. We would have to reopen that. ARPA has already submitted an application for it, and that's where I got those scoring mechanisms on the 85 and 80. So if we were to move forward with these, we would have to pass a resolution renewing the program, setting aside the funding that you would want to allocate towards this program, and then we would provide the guidelines to you again that were included in the packet. The only change to it was that state funds could replace township local funds. So that was the only change to the program that we offered back in December. So I just threw a lot of numbers, a lot of information at you. I guess the first decision we would need to make are on those the 2 applications that were part of our original program. If we were to award both $528,000, we still would have enough funding based on the 1.5 million that was allocated to the program. We'd be under that 1.5 threshold.
And these are mainly going to be serving areas that without this dollars provided, more than likely that business would not be serving.
Correct,
those.
or it would take much, much longer. I do want to add on these two processes, if you look at the far, well, it's my right, the additional homes, the Santiago project would reach 121 additional homes. They cannot be part of our grant because they're outside the unserved and served areas. And then the Becker would also hit an additional 72 homes that are not part of this project. So approving these would lead to additional infrastructure. They just don't qualify for our grant funding. So I wanted to explain that too, that it's not just these 42 and 70 homes you're hitting. They are hitting additional homes as well if the projects were to move forward.
And when we started to focus on the need to get broadband across the county, the townships are obviously going to be the areas that are going to need the most assistance to do that, because businesses, because of where properties are and how far apart they are, they're not as apt to get served because it's not a return on investment for that business. And everybody needs, we've been told time and time again, well, we understand time and time again, the needs for good, reliable access to broadband in regards to when COVID happened and online learning and the situations that happened where people weren't served adequately by broadband. They struggled to be able to do that, and the more people that are working from home. I see this all the time in comments from residents and usually in the townships that are struggling to get good, reliable service. I guess more of a comment than a.
So, Madam Chair, Dan, we have 1.5 million aside in that bucket, right?
Correct, and 940,000 has already been approved on those first two projects. So we do have 560,000 that's still available under that first bucket.
Okay, so what you're saying is we have enough to do the entirety of what we're looking at here.
These two, the discussion one on the two that were part of our existing program, yes.
The one thing that I am wondering about and would like for us to review, I think we need to move forward with this, but I also think we need to discuss parity with the townships. It changed. Their ability to use the money changed. And so the townships are struggling with fixing roads and doing what they need to do. And, they didn't mind giving up that money when all they could do with it was, but that has changed. So, and I don't know how much, in our prior projects, how much township contribution we've had.
It's up there. Livonia contributed 36,500, which was half of the project costs.
Okay.
So it was either the greater of half or 75,000 is what we asked for. Elk River was a much larger project, and they actually contributed 25% of the project cost, which is over 300,000. So cities have received a little bit more ARPA money, so they were willing to contribute a little more.
And my comments and my ruminating about this are similar to Felix, and I spoke with Bruce about it, and Dan and I exchanged some numbers yesterday, and I think that's where your question was from somewhat, looking back at Livonia or the townships that have chosen not to participate up to this point for whatever reason. It's kind of like, what's the fair, right, and just thing to do with all this?
And we struggled with that from the beginning. Yes.
Yeah. So I'm struggling a little and wondering, do we need to circle back? Do we need to?
I'm thinking we need to circle back.
Okay.
Yeah, I do too.
And get everybody treated fairly on it.
And our surrounding counties have done it differently, so everyone's kind of doing this differently. And so we can, look at them a bit. But yeah, I think if we have the money available, I would want us to circle back to those other projects.
And broadband discussion 1, there's no time urgency on that. Discussion 2, the applications are due to the state in August, so we do need, for Arvig's sake, to make some sort of decision on that project. Like I said, that's not a formal, we don't know if those projects are gonna get awarded, but they do need to know if we're gonna be a partner, because it would change their scoring formula quite a bit.
Well, Madam Chair, I mean, we need to take our shot on this, I think. That's the, you know, and the likelihood of us getting both of them, if we got them, great. But I mean, that's, you know, the best way for us to leverage our money and get people served, and it is a priority for us, and it's actually a priority in every county right now. So I think we should move forward.
Yeah, definitely. I think we should move forward with that, with the border to border.
Okay, Tim, I'm gonna try to explain the process here. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Hold on, before you do, Dan, just clarify then. So just framing it, I'm kind of hearing maybe tabling action on Santiago and Becker and circling back to them. Is that what I'm hearing, Felix?
No.
Okay.
I mean, we have one other township. I think we should treat that township if the same way that we are treating Midco or San Diego and Becker.
And that's what I'm inferring also, that for me, it'd be circling back to Livonia.
Right.
And other townships that have chosen not to participate at all. With this new.
Well, and the opportunities are limited. I mean, I think we're kind of getting there with a lot of them, aren't we, that where we can use this?
They did provide a new map, and there are a lot more unserved and underserved areas. I know that's been a complaint of all of ours, is the maps weren't real accurate.
Yeah.
As they get better and better at this, there are additional areas that have shown to be unserved and underserved.
Yeah.
Is that because they're raising the bar, Dan, to
That's because they're
actually-
getting more accurate data from the
Okay.
providers.
All right. From the providers and also the users?
It's my understanding it's provider
Okay.
submitted data.
Still self-reported?
Yeah.
Okay.
But Keisha, can you bring up that other map just for an example? You can see there's a lot of pink on that map. Now, a lot of those areas, there aren't a lot of people in, but there's a lot there's a lot more pink on this map than the one I showed you about 6 months ago because the data has changed.
Well, I know back when the county did the broadband study to look at possibly providing broadband across the county, could you refresh my memory what that dollar figure come in at? And that was how many years
This was
back?
2015. It was about 90 million at that time. That was for a ring around the
Right.
county. Correct.
And in the meantime, now we are doing road projects, laying conduit, so we can partner with different agencies to get the fiber through the conduit. It'd be nice, I agree with what Felix is saying, by circling back and trying to get a better understanding. Right now, these are puzzle pieces that we're kind of putting in place, but how is the puzzle coming together? It would be nice to see that big picture. How are we making progress, and where should we best be putting the funds to make that progress?
If you can see the Aqua area on the map, those are the now served. If we would have done this 7 years ago, it would look much different. We have made a lot of progress in that
Yep.
time. But the challenge, Commissioner Danielewski, as you well know, there's not one provider that serves our area.
Right.
There's multiple providers, and if it was one, it would be a little easier to work with them, but since you have so much competition,
Yep.
there's a lot of moving parts that make it difficult.
Petition is good,
It's good.
except for when you're talking about broadband. That can be a
Well,
challenge.
it's still good.
It's still
Still
good,
good.
but
It's still
you're dealing
good.
with a lot of different agencies. So in clarification, I think what I heard Commissioner Smeezing say was he thinks that we should move with what we have in front of us and then bring back the conversation to how we're going to go forward with the next bucket, so to speak. Is that what I've heard?
Yeah, clarify, so just so we get it correct, where you
Okay.
want us.
I would say that we should adjust Livonia's,
I can go back to them, yes.
give them a refund? What is it, roughly $26,000?
Madam Chair, just to clarify, they would have contributed to, with their own grant to the provider. I don't know if that was Midco or Arvig. So it's not that we would give them a refund. Theoretically, we could look at supplementing our grant if they wanted to withdraw their grant. We'd have to look at how that works.
Well, I don't know how that function would be, but I think if we can, out of a sense of fairness to our townships, we need to treat them the same on this.
I also think it's important to make clear that I don't think we've had any projects that have been denied that haven't reached the board.
We did have one.
We did have one? Okay. So does the board want us to go back and look at that one then?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. And we did have one in Clear Lake Township that only served 10 residents, and it was a pretty substantial cost. So staff said it's probably not the best time for that one. We did score that, and that one scored very low. So that one was never brought forward to you also. But this would help supplement, these border-to-border grants would help supplement a lot of those areas in Clear Lake.
Okay, so they're going to review that. Are we, and on do we have a timeline issue with this?
This would be a 2023 project, so as long as we discuss it in August, I don't think there'd be a problem delaying.
I motion to table
Okay.
those top projects until August.
So we have a motion then to table this till August, is that?
Just the top ones.
But we would consider, we would continue the conversation to make sure we have a action made by.
Yeah, it's a two-part deal.
Yeah.
I put the numbers back up if you can.
So the motion is to table action on Santiago and Becker.
Right.
That's just the motion as itself.
So that's what, we're going to table the discussion on Santiago and Becker Townships. And so a motion's been made to do that. Is there a second? Did I miss that, or did someone second that?
Madam Chair, I'll second that.
Okay, motion's been made and second to table the discussion on Santiago and Becker Townships till August. Is that the correct language?
Okay, can I make a friendly amendment, motion maker, to not put that date on it?
Actually, with a tabling motion, it's non-debatable, non-negotiable.
Okay,
So
sorry.
if
We'll
you
go
want
with
to
August,
withdraw
that's-
your second,
that's
you
fine.
can then do your own motion.
Well, fine, August will be here before we know it. We're almost there.
And I don't think on a table motion that you discuss.
No discussion.
Okay, so a motion's been made and seconded to table the discussion for Santiago and Becker Townships until August. Is that correct language? All those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed, nay. Motion's passed. Now, the border-to-border, that's a separate issue?
Yeah, as I mentioned, applications are due to deed by August 4th.
We have to go outside. We back in order?
I'll call the meeting back to order. And we'll resume our discussion.
So we're back to the two projects for the border-to-border. ARVIG is requesting a commitment letter, so what we would need to do to make that happen is A, there's a resolution included in your packet that would renew our broadband access program. They would have to apply, and like I said, they have already submitted an application. I did review it, it would qualify with a scoring of 85 and 80 for the two projects. We would then need to know what you want to allocate to that program. Last time we allocated 1.5 million. Do you want to do that again for the second half? We would open it up for other providers as well, like we did the first time. And Tim, am I missing anything?
You would also have to approve the grant to ARVIG. It would be contingent on receiving the state border-to-border grant. So in other words, if the state doesn't participate, if they don't receive that grant, there's not going to be funding to do this project. But we would at least do a commitment letter, because the state scores their grant program similar to the way we do. They want some local participation. We've done that in the past with a loan agreement.
So would this then just be Haven and Clear Lake Townships? That would be,
We'd probably want to approve these separately because they are separate projects. The Elk River is also a separate project. So they apply to Clear Lake and Haven as one project for the department, or for deed, and then Elk River is a separate project. So they're submitting two applications to the state.
okay.
So first, we need to open it up and extend our program and to fund it, right? So
There's a resolution to
There's a
do that.
resolution,
Yeah.
so I move to approve the resolution of Sherburne County Board of Commissioners revising and renewing the Sherburne County Broadband Access Grant Program under the American Rescue Plan Act.
And we would need an allocation amount for that program as well, included in that resolution. That's blank right now.
Let's wait for a second also
Okay,
for
sorry.
discussion.
Okay, so is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, so now we can go ahead with our discussion.
What did we do for the first one? 1 point what?
1.5.
So is that both Haven and Clear Lake together on that one? Is that what?
These two projects combined would be about 807,000.
But right now, we are extending the program
Yes.
and funding it.
And putting a money
And
amount.
so,
New money.
new money,
If the other two projects are approved that we're talked about today, we'd be at about 1.45 million. So we'd be pretty close to the first threshold.
so we should put 1.5 million in again? We have the ARPA funds to do it?
Correct.
Were those,
Part of your motion?
Sure, with a 1.5 million from the funds available to the county under ARPA, so 1.5 in there. Sure.
Did I second that? Okay, second.
and that includes that's the request for the two
No,
counties?
this is totally
This is
separate.
different.
Okay, so this is just for
We're
what?
just funding the bucket right now.
Funding the bucket, okay.
Funding the bucket, reopening the program.
Reopening the program and funding it.
So motion has been made and seconded to open the program with that criteria. And any further discussion? So we can go ahead and vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Motion passed, okay.
Secondly, we'd look to approve each project on its own and grant staff the authority to submit a letter of commitment to ARVIG that we'd be willing to participate in the project.
And our participation cost, Dan, in this project would be,
30% of the
okay,
total
because
project
we have
cost.
county contribution of 162,795 and county contribution per passing 3,876. Is that just a breakdown?
Correct,
per
that's just the
passing?
Elk River project.
Got it, okay.
Okay,
So it would be a motion to support ARVIG's border-to-border broadband grant application for the city of Elk River area.
I'll move that.
Okay,
Okay, motion's been made.
I'll second, Madam Chair.
Okay, second. Motion's been made and seconded for the border-to-border ARVIG What's the focus on Elk River? Request. Okay.
Just before you vote, clarify, it's actually to approve the grant.
The grant.
Yeah,
Grant
sorry.
application.
The letter intent.
And it's contingent upon state funding.
Yes.
Is there any, motion's been made and seconded. Is there any further discussion about anything? This one is the focus on Elk River's request?
We don't want to use the word
No, don't-
focus. Just
Okay.
No Elk
for the-
River.
Yeah.
Keep
Or
Elk
we'll
River.
Right,
It's- It's
just the grant, it's motion to approve the grant from Arvig.
Arvig.
Right, for the border-to-border request.
Okay. So now we have the language that's all of,
Mhm.
any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Motion's passed.
And then the second recommended motion would be to approve the grant for Arvig for their border-to-border application for Haven Township and Clear Lake Township contingent upon state funding.
So moved as stated.
I'll second.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded to approve what was just stated. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed, nay. Motion's passed.
Thank you, Commissioners. I know that was a little confusing, but thank you.
I think these are exciting times of when this hopefully goes through and we can see everybody. Okay, so now we move on to Commissioner correspondence. Who would like to start?
Madam Chair, I can start. June 21st, I attended the CMRP XCOM meeting. I also that evening attended the recognition ceremony for Ketty Green, who was recognized as Citizen of the Year in the city of Big Lake. Also would like to recognize that Ketty is an employee of Sherburne County, and it just goes to show the serving nature of our employees. She works for her boss is in the room here. She works for the Sherburne County Sheriff's Office or Department, so I'd just like to recognize that. That's such an honor to have achieved. June 23rd, attended the CMRP meeting. We, on that meeting, had the federal representative and the state MnDOT representative was at our meeting to go through and discuss some of the things that we need to lay out to be working towards connections in regards to between the cities of on the Wright County side and the cities on the Sherburne County side. So we're making progress there. Also wanted to, June 23rd, also attended, Community of Big Lake had their 50th annual Spud Fest celebration. We celebrated 50 years. We had a great turnout and lots of fun events, and just wanted to recognize that for the Community of Big Lake with their Spud Fest 50th year. June 27th, attended my options board meeting. June 28th, attended the groundbreaking for the infrastructure in the Becker Business Park up in Becker. That was a good turnout as well. They're excited to see that get up and going. And also attended an event up in St. Cloud called Food Waste to Energy Pilot Project. They had an open house, and it was up at their St. Cloud Recovery Facility, and they had a digester machine that they got a grant to operate. It was very fascinating to see what can be done by recycling of this nature. It is a pilot program, so we will be waiting to see the results of that. But in order to turn a lot of things that would end up in our landfills, to be able to use them in a method that you can digest them down and turn them into energy was pretty cool to see. So that they're also going to be making a presentation at our Tri-County Solid Waste Board as well. And then also June 30th had our follow-up CMRP meeting to digest what was done at our June 23rd meeting and to make forward movement on how we're going to redefine our work plan to accomplish that connection between Wright County and Sherburne County. July 11th, I attended with Dan the WAVE Youth Center Information Breakfast. That was really a great presentation to hear what this organization is trying to do to serve the needs and especially the mental health needs of our youth. And just want to remind everybody, don't forget, this is Sherburne County Fair Week, so get out and visit the fair. That's it. Thank you.
Who would like to go next?
I don't have anything.
Okay.
I'll remind Felix, he has one thing, because he did an amazing job. I attended the River Heights groundbreaking that Felix spoke at
That's right.
up in St. Cloud, and I have to tell you, it made me proud to be a Sherburne County Commissioner once again, and to be part of Sherburne County, that we are providing more housing, expanding housing for homelessness. So Felix did a great job.
Thank you.
I, part of the NACO High Performance Leadership Institute, continue participating in that. I had a TRICAP Executive Committee meeting and Central Minnesota Jobs and Training Community and Government Relations meeting, and just want to remind everyone that on September 30th, we will be doing the Wellness in the Workplace event, all remote, so you can all just Zoom in, featuring Melissa Pribble with the Bounce Back program. So our focus is mental health wellness, so join that if you're able to. She does a great job. And then also I had a Central Minnesota Jobs and Training Workforce Development Board meeting.
Okay. And I had on the 24th, COVID-19 steering committee meeting with DHS, and on the 27th, I had a extension meeting in the evening with Sherburne County area. On the 28th, I was at the Becker Business Park infrastructure groundbreaking. And then on the 6th, I was at MRSC, One Watershed, One Plan. We had another meeting to kind of plan going forward with that process. And on the 7th, we had a thank you call with Representative Emmer. And then later on that day, we did a Quad County Extension meeting looking at searching for ag ed people for the Quad County. And that's all.
Each, I need to make a correction. I attended the same One Watershed, One Plan meeting along with Barb. I don't know how I missed that one. And did I mention my options board meeting on June 27th? Okay, thanks.
And just a note for the board, as you recess to workshop, the fire alarm was generated because of construction work above the special housing unit. Dust was generated and it set off the alarm, so apologies for that.
I would also like to make an announcement that the announcement that Bruce made this morning about the ambassador meeting for the fair has been canceled.
Oh, okay.
Is that on the Wednesday evening?
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
Is that the 4-H one?
Yeah. I'll be living at the fair, so if anybody wants to talk about extension, whatever, I'm there. Okay. Okay, so then you were saying that we would adjourn our meeting and reconvene adjourn our regular meeting and recess.
Yeah, if you want to take 5 minutes, and then we'll meet in the back room for a workshop. We have
Okay.
a couple, for sure, a couple items we want to work through. The third one, depending on your stamina, we can discuss, so.
5 minutes, then we'll meet in back. So at 11:30, round it off. Okay.